since I was a lot younger, I didn't really get to know Grandpa Garlitz. So tell me a story y'all remember about Grandpa.
Which one? Which grandpa? Their
Grandpa
daddy?
Garlitz.
Their dad?
Their dad.
Okay.
I mean, it's the only Grandpa I knew.
He often used to ask me to play the piano for him, and he always wanted me to play when they ring those golden bells. And I think it was played at his funeral. And also he liked us to read the Bible to him. I remember that about him.
Mom, did you hear me?
Yes.
I can't think of anything.
Well, I remember there was a large family of us. We had a bench, and we'd all get around the table. And if no one started eating till everyone came, and the boys had to have a shirt on, and they had to have their hair combed. And he said the blessing before we started eating.
I remember that.
Did you ever get in trouble? Archie, did you get in trouble for not having a shirt on?
I always had a shirt on, but some of the older boys didn't.
Our dad.
And-
I thought it was Grandpa Garlitz.
That is my Grandpa
It's
Garlitz.
his Grandpa. Oh, I thought it was our Grandpa.
What about when he didn't have a shirt on, he would tell them, he'd come by the porch and say, boys, just remember, I haven't forgotten. And then he'd go over, he'd catch them later when he didn't have to run after them or anything, and he'd get something and swat them on the bottom.
Well, that was Larry and
Larry and Melvin. Maybe Ed. Okay, Archie.
Okay, do you remember well, Dot, do you have a story?
Well, I was just going to say, when anybody did anything wrong, Pop would catch them by the ear, and he'd just kind of twist their ear a little bit, and he meant from the mind, and he'd just catch them by the ear. Don't y'all remember that?
Very much.
I'd be out playing marbles with Jinx. He'd get me by the ear and say, get in there and dry them dishes like you're supposed to.
When was Grandpa ever mad?
He never did whip us.
No.
Mama always used to switch. Yeah, she did it good. But he twisted that
good
good ear.
Oh, he whipped me with a belt one time, and I had blisters.
I never did get a whipping.
Because I told him
You must have been a bad girl.
Well, we went to see Gone with the Wind. It was late coming in, and they left the dishes for me, and they said, you got to do the dishes. And I said, I'm not going to do them. And Papa said, you are going to do them, and so you
And so you did the dishes.
I did the dishes after he whipped me.
Well, when was he ever mad at first? When was he mad at Grandma?
I never saw him mad at Mama.
Mother, tell the tales.
Well, I don't remember what it was all about. Anyway, he says,
Oh, he said, you silly woman.
Yeah, you silly
Miss
woman.
Chambers at Moran, she teased him about.
yeah, something, and now what?
He said, you silly woman.
I don't know what it was all about, but anyway.
Well, what about the horse? When I'm trying to get the horse out in the corral, and my daddy said, never seen Grandpa mad. And Grandma came out there, y'all remember? And he said, woman, in the house.
No, I don't
She was messing up what they were trying to do with the horse, so he sent her in the house. Woman, in the house. That was my daddy's tale.
Okay, I have another one for you. How did Hazel get to be the cook?
Well, she wanted to be.
She loved to cook. And she liked to stay in the house, and the rest of them went out and worked outside. And she wanted to cook. And she didn't want anybody bothering her.
And she didn't like to do the dishes, but she loved to cook.
Yeah.
So
And she
Louise
was
and
a
I
good
did the dishes.
And she was rationed, when the sugar was rationed, she beat me over the head because I wanted to make some candy one time. She didn't like it.
So what'd you do? Did you make candy?
I think so, but I didn't get very much sugar.
When Viola wanted to make taffy, she'd wait till Hazel went out to gather the eggs,
Yeah.
and then she'd say, hurry quick, and she'd sneak me in the house, and we'd get in the kitchen, and we'd make taffy. We had to hurry to make that taffy before Hazel came back in, because we knew we were in trouble. See why I'm one of the sisters? Each of you tell a tale about your childhood. One tale, or two, or three.
Well, I used to play by myself a lot. Doc wouldn't play with me.
We played jacks together all the time.
Well, I played the house out in the old truck stop, and I played by myself. I had canned mesquite beans, and I did canned berries from the old mulberry tree, and I did things like that. Played like I was quilting. Mama never used to have these quilting bees, and I'd stretch an old piece of quilt out and act like I was a quilting. I remember that.
Old truck stop? What does that mean?
Huh?
What's
You
an
mean
old
a
truck stop?
smokehouse?
No, it was
No.
an old truck, part of an old truck, wasn't it?
Yeah,
That's where we put on plays.
that's
I
where we
thought
had.
it was just the cabin that went on the truck that was parked out
It's an
there.
old school bus of some kind.
Well, we called it the old truck stop or something. I played in it.
It's when
I had a playhouse in it.
That's where we had our plays, that's right. We
That's
had
where
our-
Jinx put on a
Yeah.
sheet and come by one night. And boy, when we saw him, we all lit out for the house and left
Francis.
You or
Francis.
Or Francis in the house.
Sleep. She was a little one riding good.
Oh.
And she was asleep, and we run off and left her and let the wolf take her.
Kevin.
I remember
Evan.
Clarence used to on Halloween. He'd come around and scratch on the windows, you know, and scare us kids half to death. He just, I don't know why, he just always doing something.
Yeah.
Leroy Terry was the one that did that.
Who?
Leroy Terry used to scare us. You know, he'd
Well,
throw
Clarence
rocks
used
at
to
the
do it on
kitchen.
Halloween.
Well, I remember Clarence coming in all the time. He'd come in late, and Homer'd be asleep, and he'd get the old Vicks sack and rub it under his nose. And old Homer'd just have a fit. He'd just throw a fit. And Clarence would just die laughing. He just thought that's the funniest thing ever was. Mama says, I wish you'd quit doing that to that kid. But it didn't matter to him. He liked to see him.
He liked to bring.
Yeah, he liked to see him holler. But he'd be asleep and he'd put that old Vicks under his nose. No, he thought that was horrible.
I used to like to go in the buggy with him to Eonian to carry the mail, 'cause he'd always buy me candy.
Yeah.
And then I'd go to sleep before I'd get back home, because I don't know, I'd just be so, I don't know, I'd just fall asleep, but I'd love to go with him. He'd take me along just for company, I
Yeah.
guess, and I wasn't much company.
One time I went with him on the mail route, and we came to a little old bridge, and there was an old skunk there. So he honked at that skunk, and that skunk sprayed the car. My, that was awful smelly. And took that home with us. And another thing, I remember him, when he'd come by the house, before he'd ever leave, when he was leaving each time, he'd always say, I'll see you in the funny paper.
Yeah, he'd always say that.
I
See you in the funnies.
I didn't even know Clarence had a mail route.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, years ago.
Yeah, for several years, didn't he?
I used to go with him when I was about 5 years old, I think. And we'd go down into, when we'd get to Eolian, he'd set me up on the counter, and he'd always buy me a pop. And I look forward to that, boy. I thought that was the best thing ever was, because we never did get pops at home. And I get to go with him. Well, I got that pop.
Ask them your question. Laney wants to ask a question.
I remember one time I went to the drugstore and I charged an ice cream cone. And Papa didn't allow us to do things like that. But I did anyway, and then I went in with my dad one day, and he paid my bill. And he said, don't you ever do that again. But he bought me an ice cream cone, you know. But other kids was doing that. I could do it too.
Laney, ask your question, real loud,
How'd you get to school?
a little louder.
How'd you get to school?
Walked. We walked to school.
How far?
Indian style.
2.5 miles.
What's Indian style?
Just
What's-
one after another.
Follow the leader?
Yeah.
How far was it?
2.5 miles.
And I was scared to death of a bull every time I'd go through College Station.
The old bull snakes are the ones that get after us. Ooh.
The bull snakes?
Yeah, man, they'd chase you. Those snakes would chase you. And
I've never been at school.
we quit going through there.
Tell us about the bus that passed you by.
The old Eureka bus. Yeah, I always told Papa, I said, I wish you'd quit paying taxes down there at Eureka. I said, that old bus comes by and passes us up every day. And going to school. They go to school and there we were walking and he paid taxes down there for them to come. Made me so mad. I think was he ought to need to pay taxes to bring them to school.
We were in a different school district is the reason why.
Yeah.
Well, he made them come to get me, and they'd turn around in front of the house for me when I was in high school.
You're the only one that got to ride the bus?
Those that lived in that district got to ride.
Just Francis, Mother never
Yeah, I remember
Yeah, I
riding
rode
the
the
Eureka bus
last
too.
year, I think.
But I rode the Morehead Independent bus after Papa went up there and complained, says, I want my daughter on that bus, I pay taxes. So they turned around in front of the house, brought me home, and brought me to school.
Well, I walked every day that I ever went to school. I walked all the way.
But
Rain or shine.
I would always be so mad when Wiley Williams carried
Oh,
the
he used
mail
to pass
and he
us up.
passed us up like a dirty shirt.
Yeah.
I didn't know he wasn't supposed to pick up anybody. And I was so mad at him. I said, well, he couldn't give us a lift.
Yeah, I used to get mad at him too.
Well, what
Yep.
is one of your memories from school? School memory.
I remember one time when Dot just started to school and I was in the 5th grade, I think, and Etoy Bankston was my teacher. And she was coming up and sitting in the class with me after her school was out. And we were looking at an encyclopedia and we was looking at these natives with big old toes, you know, and everything. And Dot got to sniggering and sniggered out loud, you know. And Etoy came up and said, you all be a little quieter or something or other. Anyway, she got on us. And I never will forget
I
that.
know, and I won't either. That was the funniest thing I ever saw, those old native pictures.
Bill, what about you?
I just don't remember anything exciting happened.
Boring? Was it boring?
No, I enjoyed school. It wasn't boring, but just ordinary things happened, I suppose.
She behaved herself.
Did-
That's
did-
why.
Did they have colored pictures back then?
What?
Were the pictures colored back then?
Oh, no.
Yeah,
We
they
didn't
were.
have colored pictures then.
No,
That was when Mother came
In the
along. that was-
Oh.
Yeah, they were.
Oh, yeah.
They were
Oh, I
colored.
thought you meant photos.
Yeah, photos. I mean, no,
We
I'm
didn't
in the
have
books. I
Oh,
mean, in
no.
your school books. Were they all
Oh,
black
yeah,
and white?
we had colors in there. But I remember when I was in the 7th grade that Peggy Jo Willis was in my class and she had real spindly legs and she went across the stage and her hose fell to the floor. Everybody died laughing and I think we all kind of got in trouble for laughing. But I remember that so well.
I remember a girl that was out at the fish pond around in front of the school and she fell in the fish pond. That was Montgomery, that Montgomery girl.
Naomi Montgomery?
Anyway, that was so funny. Alberta Montgomery, they fell in the fish pond. We all know.
Lady, ask them their
Remember
question.
when we were seniors, I guess, and there was a girl that went to school and I don't know why we were so mean and ugly to her, but anyway, she was always carrying a white purse, and it was in December or something. We thought, oh, she shouldn't be carrying that old white purse, you know. And we made so much fun of her, and the teachers, they got on to us about it. So we decided, well, we'd just play hooky then. So the next day, I think we decided we wouldn't go to school, and we went to Deep Creek. So I don't know how we got there, but we went to Deep Creek, and we stayed all day. And the next day, the preacher the principal wanted to know where we was, and we hated to tell him where we were. And he said, well, we're just going to give you something to do. So he made us write a 5-page theme on the life of Christ for playing hooky.
You forgot to tell them y'all painted that purse with
Oh
shoe
yeah,
polish.
we painted that purse black. We painted that purse black and put it in her locker.
Not a thing.
Yeah, it was Geraldine Ayers. Wasn't that terrible?
What'd you paint it with? What'd you paint it with?
Good shoe
Shoe
polish.
polish. We used black shoe polish.
Well, she was in style then.
Y'all were awful.
Oh no, it
Yeah,
was
I can't
terrible.
believe y'all would do that.
That was Earlene and Gladysdale.
Who
and I-
painted it? Who painted the purse?
I don't know. All of us had a hand in it, I'm sure.
You and Louise? Was Louise
No.
part of it?
No,
Louise
just Dot's
wasn't.
lunch.
Oh.
It was my class.
It was Marion Jackson.
Yeah, I know who I took after.
I didn't know y'all were fashion critics that early.
Oh, gosh.
There's something you did not do, is wear white after Labor Day.
And we're white.
Oh.
Anyway, it was the middle of winter.
Louise, tell us what happened to your dress one time, your new dress.
Oh, this little innocent thing one time when she was about, I don't believe she's more than 4 or 5. I don't know. I guess she could have been 5. But she wasn't very big. But she was big enough to take up for Hazel. Hazel was reading a novel in the back bedroom, and I got in there and I hid that novel. So Hazel couldn't read, and Dot took up for Hazel. So she goes in the middle room where I had a new dress that Mama had ordered it from Sears and Roebuck, Monkey Board 1. And I think I'd ever worn it maybe, or not more than
I
once.
don't think you ever wore it.
Anyway, she got my new dress out of the closet. Got in that middle bedroom, and we had 2 beds in there. And she was sitting right down here between them 2 beds with my dress afire just to blaze it up. She was nearly ready to catch the sheets afire. And the door was closed, and I just happened to come in there. And I saw what she's doing, and I said, oh my gosh. And I grabbed my dress and ran down the hall, ran outside where Mama was raking the yard. I said, look, Mama, she burned my new dress. And so Mama got a peach them and give her a good switching.
Oh, man, did I ever do that.
You deserved it.
I remember that one. And I remembered one more that I got. Francis and I was playing outside, and we had an old boxed-in wrench that we seeing how far we could throw it behind us. And we just throwing it, and I picked it up and I threw it, and she was behind me, and it happened to hit her in the head.
That's what's wrong.
Well, anyway,
Still got the
Mama
scar.
gave me a good one. I don't know. I said, well, I didn't deserve that whipping. I didn't know she was back there. But anyway, she gave me a good lashing.
What about when Grandpa was sick and Mother, you were going to drive him to the doctor?
Oh, yeah.
And Dot backed the car out and hit a tree. They thought she hit me, and I was crying about the accident, and everybody thought she'd run over me.
But y'all took him to the doctor, but hid the banged up car all the way, right?
Yeah,
didn't know
Louise
She
took
didn't
him
hear
to Fort Worth.
what I said.
No, I didn't go to Fort Worth.
Yes, you did.
No, I have never driven to Fort Worth in my whole life. I couldn't get there to save my life. You did too. No.
Did you go to Gorman?
I went to Moran. I took him up to Dr. Keys. I never drove to Fort Worth. Yes, you did.
Yes, you did.
And he come back through Breckenridge and had his teeth pulled.
Yeah.
You did. You took him to Fort Worth. No, I did not. You did.
Thank God.
You
You
did
did
too. I
too.
did not. I went. I've never driven that far. You did too. You drove him to Fort Worth. Y'all are dreaming because I know I did not.
Well, you did.
She did. She drove him to Fort Worth. I did not.
But Grandpa,
And Papa didn't know that the car was even bashed in until he got home. I just drove him to Moran. Y'all are dreaming. No. You went to Fort Worth and the doctor told him that there wasn't nothing wrong with his heart. To
Yeah,
do
have his
something to
teeth
have his
pulled.
teeth pulled. No. He come back to Breckenridge and have his teeth pulled. He went to Temple after. You're dreaming. You are. You're the one that's dreaming.
No, y'all don't know
Okay.
her driving. She has not
Okay.
driven in Fort Worth. I promise.
I was never driving to Fort Worth. You
did that time.
She did. too. She did.
What?
She sure did. I did not.
We're not through with this one.
I drove back from Abilene one time when Clarence Alice was in the hospital. And Mrs. Loving was over there with Miss Hamilton, Alice's mother. And Clarence wanted to go over to see him, and he said, would I drive the car back and bring Miss Loving back? And I said, well, if you'll get me out of town. And so he brought me out to the edge of town, and I drove back home with Miss Loving. And that's the farthest I've driven. You forgot. No,
You forgot about
you
that Fort
forgot.
Worth trip.
And whenever we got home, there were several lugs loose on the wheels of that car. It's a wonder we hadn't lost the wheel. All the lugs was loose on some. Well, I know you went to Fort Worth, so no, you just forgot. I forgot.
Please, 'cause I remember it.
I do too, Francis. Just
Oh, okay, I got a question for you.
Yeah, we better change.
We're changing the subject. Okay. I want to know what y'all did to Alice that she never would come back to the home place and have dinner.
I didn't do anything.
Not me.
I always liked Alice.
tell the story
Well,
of what happened.
Mom says that we used to go to their house all
Well,
the
when
time.
the kids was little, we came on vacation, we always went down to see my Alice and Clarence, and Wallace and Edmund were small, and she would just be thrilled to death for us to come down there and bring those kids. I always liked Alice.
Well, she took me when I was a little kid. I remember going to Breckenridge with them.
I think one time I heard that Papa and Otto were down there working on something, and she threw rocks or something at Otto.
Oh,
And I think that was the start of the feud.
Grandpa.
Yeah, she threw it at Grandpa.
They bought that land, and
Grandpa bought it and helped them get it started, or he made the down payment so they could get it.
Uh-huh.
And she threw rocks at him.
and they were going to fence off part of it, he and Otto, so they could graze some of it. And Alice didn't like that, and she threw rocks at them. That's
And
the
Otto
start
got
of
on
I
to
think
her.
that's what started it. And she never did come to the house anymore. She sat out in the car if he'd come by if she was with him.
Yeah, the only time I ever remember seeing her was at the funeral. So
At her funeral?
at her
She was-
funeral,
She was sweet to me when
I
I
think
was
that's the
a
only
little
time I
girl.
ever saw her.
And
that I
I
can
remember, I
remember.
thought
I
she was
used to go
pretty.
down
She
there
always
and stay
wore a
at
hat
Daddy,
and
too.
gloves.
Was she a school teacher
She
Yeah.
was a school teacher.
in
And she was
Breckenridge?
Otto's teacher
More
at
in.
one
In
time.
Moran.
And they put, what did they put in her desk?
But doo-doo.
I don't know if he did it or somebody did, but it made her mad.
I guess so.
Now the story comes out.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Put some doo-doo in her desk.
In her desk at school.
No wonder.
Okay.
I used to
All right.
go down
Tell us
there
a story
and
about
she'd make the best
one of the boys.
baked chicken and smothered chicken. I thought that was the best stuff I ever ate. Oh, it was
Tell
good.
us
She was a
some
good cook.
Tell us some tales about the boys. About the boys. Something about the boys.
Your
Something
brothers.
they did. Your brothers.
I told threw me in the tank there by the house one time, thought he'd teach me how to swim, and I thought I was gonna drown, and I never did learn to swim after that. I'm scared of water, and still am.
I remember when Homer had the flower shop,
Yeah.
he'd recruit several of you to help him
Mm-hmm.
when he had,
Funerals and stuff.
yeah, more than one funeral or something.
Mother, tell about Homer coming down here and visiting and making Barbara some drawers.
Made Barbara underwear?
Mother was into this thing, and they had a pattern. They were going to make an underwear. So Homer came down here and said, "I think I'll make Barbara a pair."
Oh, no.
Tell her what it turned out like.
Oh, they were so huge.
They were what?
So huge.
They're enormous.
What do y'all make Barbara a pair of underwear? Barbara? Oh, yeah, Homer was going to make her a pair of underwear. I had some knit material to make underwear with, and I had the elastic and everything. He said, "Well, I can make Barbara a pair." And I said, "Well, okay, there it is. You go make her a pair." And he made a pair, and they were so big.
Did he take them to her?
That was so funny.
Was she modeling them one time in a picture?
No, what she's modeling in the picture was at Christmas, and he had on that dong underwear, and she had
Oh,
them stuck.
Yeah.
I think is that dong underwear?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, that was funny. They done those underwear.
But Homer actually did make clothes.
Oh, yeah.
He
He
could
could
sew.
sew, he really could.
He made ties, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he made clothes. He made.
Barbara couldn't sew, but he could.
Yeah. Oh, that was funny.
He could cook too.
Yeah.
He did most of
Any more questions?
Surely.
Surely.
Jerry, tell about Christmas one time when you put the big boots on and
Fred's shoes.
it. No,
Oh,
that was
Fred
Homer wore the big
shoes.
tennis shoes.
Oh, we brought all these things for Christmas, and they were all funny ha-ha things. And Clarence put on these old glasses that had the dongs that spring that went back and forth. Jinx. And Homer put on Fred's shoes. And Fred, that's what I named them. Fred's shoes were at least 16 and a half foot tennis shoes. 16 and a half size tennis shoes, okay. And they were huge. And he'd put on Fred's shoes, and he'd stick them up and walk around in Fred's shoes. And I used them in school for a paperweight. That's what they were for, paperweights in school. And I always told tales in school about Fred and make up these things. And the new kids kept looking for Fred. Well anyway. Yeah, he was a good jokester. He had a good sense of humor. But he'd wear those old shoes. And Jinx, and the last Christmas, I think we had it morning. Jinx and Homer and I went to chop down a tree. And down there, all you have is live oaks. So we went on that road where you go down the road and you turn back to the right. There's a little tank back there. Anyway, I'm in Hamilton, I guess. And we cut down several little live oak trees. And when it came back, Jinx and Homer cut them down. And Homer wired them all together and put them in a stand. And then we got the old decorations from way back when. And they decorated that tree. It was
Popcorn
yeah.
and
Well,
popcorn.
I don't know if we put popcorn, but they had all these old decorations. And we decorated that old live oak tree. It was our last Christmas I can remember where we all got together at Moran. But it was fun. And that's when we had all those JoJo things, I think. And all the guys got yo-yos. And Barbara had to model everything they got. They had to model. Barbara had to model those old big old gong drawers. I mean, huge. That had the heart on the back that says gong on them. We've got a picture of her with her rear sticking out with those gong things on. And somebody had to model the girdle. Adele. Adele had the girdle. What'd you have?
A corset.
Corset. Hazel's or Viola's and corsets. And anyway, it was funny. We had a lot of laughs.
Louise, remember the time when Grandpa Garlitz was there and he was sitting out on the porch and you came out with your pants or something, the top stuff with the old stockings or something, and she got out there and she started falling out, and my grandpa said, "Ye gods, ye gods."
She's losing her innards.
That was Louise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a whole big old bag of socks that I got out of the bathroom, was stuck under my dress, and I was a big old fat woman, and I was out there just dancing away. And here come a sock, and Grandpa, he just laughed. I remember that. Yeah, ye gods, I can hear him yet. It's so funny.
But Bill, what was it like being the oldest girl that had to take care of all those young kids? Did you help with them?
I don't remember ever helping with them. I guess I don't know why I didn't help with them.
I remember one time we were eating at the table and I had some boiled okra and I rubbed some on Bill, and oh, that made her mad. And I ran out the hall up the front door, and Bill was after me. Man, she was mad. And we got out in the yard and was just wrestling. I think we even got down in our bras and our pants.
I think we were down to our bras and our pants.
And Grandpa made us quit. He made me quit, you know, and I was getting the best of it.
She was the meanest thing ever.
They were fighting just as, oh man, they'd already lost their clothes. And there the traffic was a passing. Out in the yard just going after it.
I was trying to stop and I never did that. Well, anyway.
Remember when we all used to line up to take a bath on the porch and it was dark and we'd have to watch for the cars coming by? If you heard the cars were so light, we'd have to holler, get back in the house.
That's a regular 4-lane highway out there.
Yeah.
But we tell about Louise making faces at the dinner table
Oh my gosh.
With Archie.
with Archie.
Yeah, oh gosh.
Oh, who was going to tell this?
You.
Well, Archie was a hard hand, and he was very bashful. And he was sitting here, and I was sitting next to him, and then I think
You was next to
Papa was
Pop.
sitting here, or anyway, close. Well, every time Archie would reach for a biscuit, he'd look around to see if I said, look. Well, I didn't care how many biscuits he ate, but the kids on the bench, I'd kind of wink or do something.
Yeah,
And they'd get tickled, you know, make eyes at him, you know,
And of course we'd laugh and Papa say, y'all leave the table. And I don't know how many times we'd leave the table.
We couldn't
We'd come
straighten
back
our
and
face.
she'd do it again and he'd make us leave again. Oh gosh. But she could carry on with him and she'd just make eyes at him. Yes, you was.
he
Yeah,
was
you made eyes
looking
at
at me
him.
every time he'd reach for a biscuit.
Yeah, but you was making eyes at him to make us laugh.
Walling your eyes around
y'all.
at him and winking at us.
Yeah. And we had to leave the table. Oh, he didn't know what was matter. He didn't know what was
He
laughing
didn't
at.
want y'all giggling at the table.
No. He said, y'all leave the table till you can act right. We'd come back, we think we's doing all right. And here
She'd go again. We have to leave again.
Y'all were on the bench?
Yeah, we was on the bench.
That bench got so much wear.
I wonder
Francis?
what happened to that bench.
I don't know.
Don't know.
boy, we kept the slick sliding.
Well, that's where all the kids sat, on
That's
the
right.
benches.
Wasn't that down at Melvich?
Well, just imagine how many had to get around the table.
Well, it was a long table. Everybody was on the
It
bench.
held all of us kids.
Yeah.
All of us kids sat on the bench.
Yeah.
Francis, tell about when Ed and Wallace, I guess that's who it was, took you to town in your bathing suit.
Oh, I was out sunning and they claimed they was gonna take me down to the tank, you know, where they were down to home place. They got me down there and then they got me in that pickup and took me all the way to
In the
Moran.
back. You were in the back.
I was in the back and I had on my bathing suit and I was really embarrassed to go downtown and they showed me off in their old bathing suit.
That's when the Wallace and Ed, and I don't know, the kids was down there and they got her in the back of the pickup and they took her to town in her bathing
Well, I
suit.
didn't know that.
No, they thought that was something, no. They got a big kick out of it.
Well, as soon as school was out, they always wanted to go to the farm and stay all the summer.
Yeah,
Yeah, they enjoyed
they
going.
had fun down
We didn't have any toys, but we
there.
you
We
know,
made our own toys.
Grandma used to get on to us because we get all that metal off of the nails around the hen house.
The lead.
The lead.
Yeah.
And we'd melt it down, y'all remember?
In the star with the
Yeah,
brick.
we made
Yeah.
a star and put a clip on it and we were sheriffs.
Yeah.
Heavy
Yeah.
piece of
With
it.
solid lead.
It's all And she'd say, quit getting the lead off my hen house, it's gonna leak in there. And I bet you there wasn't one nail left with any lead on it.
They pulled the ball off.
Well, we cleaned out that chicken house many times too.
We did, didn't we?
That
We
was
made-
our job
yeah.
every summer.
Y'all remember we used to cook off all that stuff? We had that old cook stove down there that would put
Yeah,
wood
we
in.
put everything in.
And we
it.
cook mash and all
Yeah.
that, and we find old tin cans, and we fill the tin cans and put the lid on top, and so we were cooking, we were canning. So we said, what are we gonna do with this stuff after we get it? So we decided there was a certain tree out there by the hen house, and we dug a hole and we buried it for reserve for years later. And we have been out there digging, and there's not a sign one after all that.
Oh, it left. Yeah.
Yeah, all of our canning was for naught.
I remember going to Moran and getting a block of ice at the ice house, and coming back and we would hand crank ice cream, set the old freezer up on the cabinet top and crank it.
Well, we used to have lots of ice cream, especially
Yeah,
on the
we
4th
sit out
of
on the
July.
porch.
Yeah.
Set out on the porch.
Yeah.
And we put on plays for y'all, like y'all used to. You remember us putting on plays?
Yeah, that was the best ice cream.
What about the plays?
I don't think the place right.
What about the plays?
They were
Plays, they put on plays. She said, well, what about the plays?
No, they weren't as good as ice
And
cream.
fashion shows, yeah. Yeah. I remember something about a skunk. We had a skit with a skunk got after somebody or something. But we didn't worry about snakes. We didn't worry about anything. We played hide and seek all around that house, all hours of the night.
Nobody
never-
ever got snake bit.
Nobody, I never saw one.
Used to
Never
play
saw-
Red Rover too.
Uh-huh.
I
And run
remember that
races.
Lena Mae used to come down and y'all stay out in the yard for midnight.
Yeah.
Don't you remember, we used to run off in the corn patch and get watermelons too. And we'd, in the moonlight at night, and we'd go way out and bust watermelons and get the hearts and just,
Just destroy them.
That's when things were simple.
Yeah, that's what things were.
never thought about a snake. And now, every time I step out, I'm looking for one.
Mother, tell about your snooty cousin that came down when y'all played house. Your snooty cousin.
Harriet, you remember when
Yeah.
Harriet come? She'd say, she'd wave her hand.
With the
Oh,
female
Maid,
feathers.
come and do the dishes. Oh, Maid. She'd put
Who
on
is
there.
She had
was
these
a
peafowl
dancer.
feathers.
Yeah, she was too
Oh,
smart. for
Maid,
us.
come and do the dishes, babe. Come and do the dishes.
Who was the servant, y'all?
We didn't do nothing. We just listened to her.
That's all we could do.
Francis has told me that's so much that
But
now when we get through eating, I'll say, "Oh, May." And I'm the only one that shows up.
I ain't coming to the
Nobody ever answers.
Oh, gosh.
Lady wants to know what kind of chores y'all had to do growing up.
I had to hunt the eggs, and I hated it. Crawl in the barn and get on fleas on me and everything else.
Did a chicken ever peck you when you was getting the eggs out from
No,
under?
never got pecked, I don't think.
I don't think two of them heard
I
what you
never
said.
did like to get under an old hen that was sitting on the nest. I'd leave those nests.
We used to crawl under the barn and in
You
the
ever
hay
find
loft.
a snake in the nest?
You remember the
Hazel
time
did.
that,
Yeah.
remember how we used to
They eat
play in
those
the
eggs.
cotton
You gotta get out there
season?
and get them with those
Yeah.
eggs.
Oh,
Those
that was
snakes will get
fun.
the eggs.
Do you remember the
We
time?
could pack those things up and make castles out of them, you know, corn, those old cotton seed would pack, and you could make farms out of it. We just had more fun in that cotton seed then.
Did y'all have a playhouse? Didn't you have a bin for a playhouse?
I think every place was a playhouse.
That old big oak tree
We
out
had one
east
under
of
the
barn
tree.
is where we did more playing and climbing in that old oak tree. I remember that, don't you?
Yeah.
And do y'all remember the time that Grandpa had gone to town for groceries and Homer and I was out gathering the eggs and saw Papa coming down the road.
What was he
And when
driving?
he turned in at the cattle bar,
Wagon.
well, we ran to catch the wagon, you know, and he was in that old iron wheel wagon with spokes, you know, and Homer fell off the wagon into that wheel, and he was going around and around the wheel,
And the eggs was breaking all the time.
and he broke the egg all over his face, and I was hollering, "Papa, stop! Homer's in the wheel!"
Wow.
I hadn't heard that story.
I remember that one.
Bill, what kind of chores did you do?
I helped with the dishes.
And Hazel did the cooking, and when you were,
Hazel did the cooking, and Valda did the bossing, I guess. That's what she did. But
She worked outside.
She worked outside too, but I worked outside. But our chores was to help with the dishes. Louise and I did the dishes. I washed them, and I guess she wiped them.
But then after
I
that,
don't remember, but anyway.
Dot and I was supposed to be doing them, and I ended up doing them.
oh,
And when I left, I don't know who took over my job.
There wasn't anybody left to do dishes.
Well, Louise was still there.
I guess I did, I'd rather wash the dishes than dry 'em.
me
And
too.
I guess I washed the dishes best I remember.
I know she could have more dirty dishes.
Yeah. She's keeping scraping stuff out.
Putting it in
Changing
another
bowls,
container.
changing bowls. Hazel,
Make
make
sure
sure
you
that you
better
get the
hold
right
on.
one.
Putting that big dirty
small.
dish.
Yeah.
And I could say, well, why
That's
did
where
you
she
leave
gets
it in
it.
that bowl?
She saw
Put
it
it in the smaller one.
She do
I
it every time. I do that
I
too.
think she enjoyed making dirty dishes. We think we's through, and here's Hazel over there scraping out.
Yeah.
No, that one's too little big. Let's put in another one. Here's dirty dishes. She just kept you going for an hour.
I know Mary Bell used to be there and she helped wash dishes and I'd just keep bringing the dishes, putting them in the dish bin. She said, I wish you'd quit bringing all them dishes, dumping in the bin.
No, I didn't like everything dumped at one time either. Louise was good at piling them all in at one time.
Oh, I
You
remember,
always wash yours the second time.
I remember
Rinse them
Bill
out,
had two
then wash 'em.
boyfriends at one time.
Uh-oh.
Roy and Truett Jones. And so I had to entertain them with a piano while she'd say, now Francis, you go in there and you entertain so I gotta get rid of Truett. And so I'd play the piano for one of them. I think it was after I played for Roy and you got rid of Truett.
I'll never forget the time Roy came down there and Homer and Dot and I, were
Me?
you with us, Francis?
Yes, I was in there.
We all got in his new airplane and without his permission. And we drove to Albany and Homer didn't know a lot about driving.
And we run under the high lines and we thought we were running something.
Thought that the radio, we thought we tore up the radio, it made a fuss, you know. And we thought, oh Lord, we messed up that radio. And when we got back, Roy's face was as red
He
as
was
that.
mad.
He was, oh, I know he was mad. But thank the Lord we didn't wreck or nothing. But crazy kids took off to Albany now in somebody else's car.
I remember when Homer and I and Hazel, he was going to teach Hazel how to drive. We went down about to Lee Ayer's place, and she got us off in this big old ditch. And we like to never got out of that ditch. And she never wanted to drive after that.
What was the story one time about Hazel and ended up in the back seat or in the floorboard? Or?
Oh,
We went to Albany.
Joe had a new car one day, and he come down to the house, and he's gonna take Hazel for a ride. So we was riding around, and we come back the shortcut, you know, as you go through the fights. When he put the brake on to turn, she slid and fell down in the floorboard of the back seat.
Oh.
That was embarrassing to her.
Before
We
secret.
went to Albany that time, and we were peddling eggs and berries. You remember she broke the eggs and screamed and hollered, you know, and she had eggs all over. I don't know what happened to the car. Somebody was driving and throwing the brakes.
Well, tell us about all your boyfriends. You already said something about you had two. Okay, Francis, Ray's here. You have to tell it all.
I didn't have any.
You didn't have any
You
boyfriends?
said something about a dog, Mother.
A dog?
Well, old F.N. Hassan that I didn't like. And everybody teased me about him, and he came out, he was the only one that braved the dogs. And he came out there, and I'd tell Mom and them to tell him I wasn't there, and they wouldn't lie for me. And that's the only thing I remember. And I did finally went with him one time to the show at Albany. And I was coming back, he ran out of gasoline. And he had to walk somewhere and get gas. I thought he'd never get back to that car and get me home. When I got home, that was it. I never went home.
That's it.
Bill, what about you? Any more? Your boyfriends?
Well, one time Trent was out and he ate dinner with us. And after that he said, my goodness, y'all have a party all the time.
And you did, didn't you? Louise?
Well, one time Bill and I was dating, and she had a blind date, and I had a date with Shag Hale. And whenever we got ready to go, Shag grabs her and leaves me with the blind date. And so he didn't know the difference. And this old boy that I was with, he was old and he was smooth mouthed. And we were going toward Breckenridge to pick up Polly Kirkman, and the boy that was driving pretty wild. And this old guy that I was with said, you better give your heart to God, because well, I was scared to death.
Mother?
I didn't have any boyfriends other than Max.
That's it? When did you start going with Daddy?
When I was in school, he picked me up going to school.
He wasn't going to school there.
He wasn't, but I was. He picked me up and carried me to school.
Well, where was he living?
He was living down on Deep Creek at the
Well, if you
time.
didn't have any boyfriends, how come every homecoming everybody asked me, well, now where is your pretty sister? All the boys would ask me that. Where is your pretty sister?
Well, I never did have any boyfriends.
Yeah. Tall tale.
Well,
Like
I went
Clarence
with
said
an
he
old
did.
boy one time, and we were all in a pickup, and I had to sit on his knee, on his lap, and I'd sit up on his knees, and he'd want me to sit back, and I wouldn't do it. He said, I'd just soon be in hell when my back broke.
This is Adele and James.
To live. After
Which
high
Max
school.
is coming in.
I didn't live with them.
Well, when you went to where they lived.
Oh, I was in nurses training. I know I graduated nurse. I worked in that Hobbs General Hospital. But that's about
I
all.
thought you were away.
Oh, well, that's when Adele and I went to Tulsa.
Oh.
She wanted to get a job at the, what was it called? Airplane thing, anyway. And so we both applied, and my application went right through in a hurry, you know, because I just graduated from high school, made good grades, you know. And so they wanted to interview me, and I was scared, and I didn't want to go for the interview. But I finally went, and they wanted me, you know, to start, and I was scared, and I wouldn't start, and I wanted to come home, so she got me on a bus, a train, I guess. I got home.
How long did you stay?
I didn't stay very long. I don't remember. Just up there in Tulsa. I never heard so much cursing in my life. They called her the old woman that had the boarding house, Mama Kendi. And they all sat around the table and cuss. All those women, and I never in my life heard such language. And it scared me. And I went to Molly's, her sister lived in Tulsa, and I walked over there one day, and I said, I don't like that. I said, I never heard such much cussing, and I'm not used to that. It scares me. And she said, honey, you don't have to do that. So if you want to go home, I'll see that you get to go home. So I went home.
Mother, did you have a job when you were growing up?
No.
Louise,
I
did
just
you?
played all the time.
Did y'all ever work, any of you growing up?
I never did.
Never did? There weren't jobs for women back then much, was there?
Brenda got a job one time working in, where was it, Brenda, at McDonald's?
Yes.
And they fired her because she was
They
too,
fired me because I wasn't fast
too slow.
at the cash register.
Really?
So I got to clean the toilets and the tables all the time.
Mother, Chad wants you to tell about when you got married.
You said you eloped.
Yeah, we eloped.
Did you get in trouble from your parents?
Well, not really, but I thought I was really in bad trouble.
Papa,
Where did you elope to?
We went to Dallas.
to Mac's sister, wasn't
Yeah, we went down to see Alma and Hollis. That was stupid as anybody.
First ride, the lights on.
and she wrote home, and I never will forget. We got the letter, and everybody cried. We passed it around the table, and everybody started crying. And she had written for her clothes, and finally, Papa said, "Mama, get that girl's clothes together. I'm going to send her clothes." So we mailed her
Yeah.
clothes.
And you said you cried.
I did. I cried.
Then were you afraid to come back?
No, I wasn't afraid to come
Then they
back.
bought a farm right across the road.
Yeah.
Mother, I know this isn't the family, but tell the story of Daddy. Since he's married into this clan, tell the story of when he was 9 and had to drive the truck from San Antonio.
Oh, they lived down close to San Antonio.
Who is this?
The
Max,
Andersons.
when he and Tom was, I think they was about 9 and 11 or something like that. And they were going to move to Albany. And his daddy put him on an old Ford truck. And those two kids had this old truck loaded with furniture.
By themselves.
Yeah, by themselves, at 11 and 9.
Oh, my Lord.
And they put them on the road to go to Albany. And they'd take that old truck, and when they'd get to a hill, they'd have to back it up because it wouldn't pull. to go up a hill.
Oh my goodness.
And they'd back that old truck up till they'd get on top of the hill, and then they'd go on a while till they'd get up to another hill, and they'd have to back that old truck up. And to think that he'd let those 2 kids come to Albany.
I don't know how they ever made it.
I don't either. I don't know how they did it. They had a pretty hard life, really.
Daddy said that's why he didn't grow any taller, because he had to work all the time.
He said he had to work all the time. They had a dairy when they got to Albany, and he had to work at the dairy. He had to deliver milk every morning. And he'd deliver milk, and then he had to go to school, and he'd fall asleep at school. And he said, that's why I didn't grow.
What do y'all remember about your grandparents?
I don't remember anything except what we told about Grandpa Garlitz.
Y'all didn't see him very much?
We didn't see them very often. I remember Grandpa and Grandma being down visit with them one time, and I thought Grandma had the skinniest, ugliest feet that I'd ever seen in my life.
She hadn't looked at mine.
She had bunions and, I don't know, little old bony feet, and I thought, poor thing, I've never seen anybody with feet that looked that bad.
I don't think anybody took after those skinny little feet.
I did.
Well,
Did they, your grandma and grandpa, did they have a sense of humor, or they dry witted, or serious? Grandma and grandpa, your grandma and grandpa. I know. What was their personality like?
I don't know.
Your mama.
Your mama's mama and daddy, your daddy's daddy.
I
Grandma
never did know
Brown?
him.
Grandma
I never saw
Brown.
my Grandpa Brown one
No.
time.
I remember him. I never
Now,
saw
Grandpa
him.
Brown, Grandma told me that Grandpa Brown was poisoned by her 2 brothers to get all of his estate.
Yeah, we heard that.
That's what she believed. And they took it to court. I have seen records since then. And they took it to court. One sister sued, and everybody joined in, and Grandma joined in, and they sued for their part of the land because they got left with nothing. And they eventually got enough out of it that that's what they used to buy one of those places with. I think at Stevens County or at a other.
Oh,
And they used that money from that lawsuit from her daddy. Her daddy is estate, but they had to take it to court to get it.
They didn't get anything out of it.
I know
don't
all
think
of
they
this
got
stuff.
anything.
I'm one of the sisters. I have researched documents.
And said they got something.
Well, some of those documents might have been wrong.
No, these were in Grandma's.
I know
These are
that,
Grandma's
that they
possessions.
got money from Grandpa Brown
Yeah.
that they bought that Stevens land with. That's why we're
Well, I
getting money
didn't, I
right
didn't,
now.
I'd never heard that.
Hey, did y'all get your check the other day?
I knew it'd come up.
Yeah, and it didn't take long for mine to
Mine
melt.
went pretty quick. But it was good when we had it.
We're gonna have to wrap this up. We've gotta be in Abilene. Christy's on the way
Oh, okay.
there with the grandkids. And
Well, we appreciate everybody coming.